Go-Go Loser Ranger is anime of the season. Now, it does have steep competition from series like Kaiju Number 8, Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, and so many other series. But with this episode, I think it's safe to say from the angle of production, voice acting, story, concept, and originality, this is without a shadow of a doubt anime of the season. In this episode, Invader D finally gets his hands on the elusive artifact of Dragon Keeper Red, but it comes at a significant cost of his life. With that, the series now potentially leads into a new radical direction, with Yumeko Suzukiri being more of the central focus of the story, along with Sakurama. So in this video, let's discuss Ranger Reject Episode 3 and take the temperature from the comments on last week's video on this glorious series. Subscribe, become a patron, pick up some gamer subs, or grab a t-shirt using all of my links in the description or the pinned comment. Or become a community member by joining our Discord community. All roads lead to the description. As D and Sakurama witness the aftermath of the death of Invader F, D recalls the day that the Dragon Keepers came to the Sky Fortress smeared in the blood of their bosses, essentially forcing them to become their slaves. Remembering those times and the promise that the Keepers made of trying to work together for the betterment of society at large, he is pissed, not only because of what they did to F, but because the Keepers lied, never intending in the least to do what they promised, but instead gaslighting them. If by now you weren't convinced the Dragon Keepers are the true antagonists, this will pretty much do it for you. The entirety of these first 3 episodes has been showcasing how they lie and manipulate to get what they want. Not just the invaders, but most importantly, the people which they are supposedly supposed to protect. Now keep in mind their purpose and their roles in society, for they're not the good Samaritans they claim to be, and this comes up later again in the episode. Following D across the bridge, Sakurama first offers condolences for the loss of F, which is notable because compared to the Keepers, Sakurama's ideology is more in line with what society expects of the Keepers. He believes justice will prevail, but since his morality isn't corrupt or non-existent like the Keepers, he is mindful of, well, the enemy. He's trying to put himself in D's shoes and offers kind words to what is supposed to be his natural enemy. That's a level of maturity that pretty much tops everyone currently in this series with the Keepers we've seen so far, or even Yumeko. As the scene continues to play out, D lashes out at Sakurama as, he is the enemy and he is the monster that is going to tear down their messed up organization. And I loved the animation in this episode overall, but this scene in particular because they give so much care to the way they animate D. Outside of Yumeko and Sakurama, he is the studio's golden child, getting a lot of detail in his expressions, and as he punches his fist in the air at Sakurama, he yells in anger, and you feel every bit of how his death affected him, just like how he is currently expressing it. But Sakurama, seeing and hearing this, does something a little surprising. Much like Yumeko, he offers to have D join the Rangers, and together they'll change it from the inside. Very much so. Yumeko and Sakurama are sort of two sides of the same coin, except their ways of going about it are different. Sakurama wants to use justice to change the organization from within, which is very noble and brave of him to do. Ideally, it's the right choice, but the wrong time for him to ask D. Why would someone who just witnessed the death of one of his own join the Rangers? Yumeko offers something more in line with his current feelings, anger and sadness, and she absolutely nurtures that inside of him, which is sort of what makes Yumeko Yumeko. Hence why directly after, he heads to Yumeko to accept her offer, and wow, oh boy, Yumeko fans like myself sure were catered to and are eating good after this episode, as it seems every action she does always looks so beautiful and detailed. Like when she cuts into the omelet and puts the fork in her mouth. There is no reason for it to be this detailed, but it is, and you can see the passion from these animators to animate this super sadistic anime baddie. And Yumeko showcases a lot of that sadistic side of her very well. As soon as D starts to make any sort of demand of her, she simply cuts off the head of D, as clear as day, in the diner they're at, making sure he, well, knows his place. But take note of this aspect of D and Yumeko's relationship and compare it to how the Keepers treat invaders and how Yumeko treats D's weakness. Notice how Yumeko only cuts off D's head when D starts to get out of control with demands, when he's living in this delusion that he's some big bad monster from outer space. She never does this to enslave him or make him obedient. She does it every time so far to stop stop him from his weakness, his ego. She knows the best way to cool off D, which is by beheading him. She then goes on to officially explain how the divine artifacts work, and it's pretty simple. These artifacts give the Dragon Keepers their powers, and as she describes them, they are cheat items, pretty much. They are also the only objects they have that can kill invaders. But the real question is, how did they get these artifacts? They very much look alien, and with invaders' bosses being defeated, you'd have to wonder, did they come from the invaders? So, they're going to steal Red Keepers during the Sunday showdown, as they only use replicas. So, outside the facility, Yumeko is waiting for D to transform into Red Keeper. He's taken a little while to do it, which leads to a great moment where Yumeko just tells him to become a chair for her. Fan service moment for Yumeko fans, but another example of the great facial expressions of this series. What's most important here, though, is that it's revealed they don't often mimic other people, as it's inconsistent if they'll be able to mimic certain things or not. Some are good at it, some aren't. And D seems to be one of the more special ones and specializes in his ability of mimicry. This leads to D asking her why she is against the Rangers despite being with them. And she describes it as being someone who just wants to root for the underdog. She wants to see the rival characters vying for the main character's love to win and not lose in the end. However, this is not to be trusted, as moments before D says that Yumeko always finds some way to not tell the truth. She is indeed very secretive, and my current theory is that these keepers have hurt her in some way. No way does someone just decide to go up against the most powerful beings on the planet just because they view reality through the lens of something like the quintessential quintuplets. Also, I see you, Negi Haruba. I see ya. However, Yumeko, she is sadistic, but she's not stupid. So he makes his way through the facility and his cover is very good. That is until he meets Tokita. He gets through the door to go to the artifact and eventually takes the weapon from a golf bag, showing that the keepers, especially Red, don't see anyone as a threat, with their most powerful artifact being guarded by a simple door lock and a golf bag. But it is worth noting that D's disguise has improved. He learned to be more confident from experience and, of course, with the help of Yumeko to calm him down, presented an accurate showcase of Red Keeper. But the only issue here is that he didn't smell like him, which Tokita catches onto, realizing it's an invader and attacking. But even so, D comes out the victor by threatening to use dynamite to blow them all up, only to grab a golf club and score a hole-in-one on Tokita's noggin, knocking him out. This is a good showcase of how far D has come and how he continues to make small incremental steps to improve. He's still incredibly weak, but through Yumeko beheading him and his past experiences, he knows now that confidence is key to what he is doing. A little bit of a funny moment, making his way through a vent, he is mercilessly teased and praised by Yumeko, even promising him an award of some kind. But I have to ask, what the hell do you get in an invader as a reward? I mean, they're aliens, so you get them like an Xbox or something? I don't know, food for thought, I guess. But making his way out, he is confronted by all of the keepers as they want their artifact back. Even without the artifact, D is no match for the keepers as all of his attacks are useless. He's thrown into the ground only to lodge a water tank at Red Keeper. Having no fear though, he simply swings it away like a game of baseball as D loses his arm in the void, but is able to seemingly recover the artifact. This is another great showcase of the corrupt nature of the keepers as D tells him to fight at full power because that is exactly what he is doing. This is another example of the disrespect the supposed heroes show, as it's the invaders who are giving it their all to fight back while Red simply laughs at him, not realizing he's the lazy one, keeping an artifact like that in a freaking golf bag of all things. I mentioned earlier that the keepers don't just disrespect the invaders, but the people as well. This is an aspect of The Boys that I loved a lot in that show, and it continues in this show because Red calls the TV companies and news companies to cover this moment. It's subtle, but it shows that even the keepers are deceiving and manipulating the very people they're trying to so-called protect for their own egotistical and personal gains. We then see a showcase of Blue's artifact manifest, which is a giant spear-like weapon that turns D into Veruca Salt and eventually blows him up, ending the fight between the Keepers and D. D says in his final words that he'll remember him, but the Keepers reply that, yeah, they won't, showing how little they care, and it may be a big aspect in the future. They won't even remember the person who nearly stole one of the most important artifacts they have, but boy, does it show how quickly when Red goes to pick up the artifact only for it to disappear with the rest of D's body. In loss, D did it! He was able to snatch away the artifact to allow Yumeko Suzukiri to recover it. But now the question remains, with D out of the fight, what will Yumeko do with the divine artifact? Is she simply looking to collect the artifacts and wait for the invaders to make a move? Or is she behind some secret organization that wants them? Remember, Yumeko is a great deceiver and deceived D quite easily, even though he knew what she was doing. D was a useful fool in that sense. But we also got to mention the after credits sequence, which shows a ranger being blown up into bits as we see what looks to be a special form of an invader of some kind. They very much have a similar aesthetic face-wise to the invaders with the teeth and eyes, but everything else is so different. As well, invaders are like super submissive. How in the hell is there an invader out there killing rangers like this and look like this? Did one of their bosses, the Keepers, wipe out actually survive? Who knows? Overall, this episode of Ranger Reject was immaculate, and as a longtime Negi Haruba and Ranger Reject fan, I am so happy with the way this adaptation is going. The animation is just perfection, and you can tell the studio behind it are massive fans with their top-level treatment of Yumeko, Sakurama, and D's constant showcase of great animation. As well, the story is kicking into high gear with Yumeko now possibly being the sole owner of a divine artifact. With D's defeat, does this mean that Yumeko and Sakurama will be taking more of a center stage in the story, or is this one of those Attack on Titan moments where it seems like the MC is dead but is just a fake out? I would actually love to hear your thoughts and comments on this, so let me know what you think is going on in the story and what will happen next. But it's that time of the week when I review your comments from last week's Ranger Reject video. And if you want to participate, all you gotta do is leave a comment with your thoughts on this episode, with some of your theories and reactions, and I'll showcase them in the video. Black Iron Mega says, did you know when Red used his divine tool, the cracks on the ground says Shingo Shinko in kanji. Sorry if I mispronounced that. In English, it means divine tool invoke. It's a pretty cool detail. And yeah, this is something that as a manga reader, I probably would have known if I had the time to sit down and read it again. But besides my super busy schedule that keeps me from doing fun things sometimes, this is a cool detail, and another aspect that shows the studio behind Ranger Reject is keen on keeping a lot of details Negi Haruba had in the manga. They're not just making sure the main trio are well animated, they truly are trying to make Ranger Reject's anime a more definitive experience, much like how Chainsaw Man, Attack on Titan, or Vinland Saga's anime compared to their original manga. And trust me guys and gals, it won't end here. Nice detail though. I missed that. Sorry if I mispronounce your name, Kevin. I'm just gonna say Kevin because I don't want to offend you, but haven't felt a season be this good since 2018. This anime is one gem in a treasure chest of shows. Kevin, who has been subscribed for over 5 years now, which means they've seen my videos when they looked and sounded a lot like this. So it's been a hot minute, and ever since my JoJo video about part 3 blew up, I decided to go back and rewatch Phantom Blood via the recuts. So he's a really big community member, and I thank you so much. And I couldn't agree more with you too. This show is easily the anime of the season so far for me, and it's not even close compared to the current competition. But I wouldn't be surprised if Kaiju Number 8, Demon Slayer, MHA, or even other anime like Spice and Wolf or Matensei will take over most of the discussion for this season. To me, it's awful that this series is getting low reviews on places like Mal, and I feel a lot of people are just smugly jumping to conclusions without even watching the show just because it's Sentai, because it's the same quality level in my opinion as the best of this season, and we haven't even gotten to MHA and Demon Slayer, and I'm sure it'll be at that level too. Crane Silently Plays says recently Negi showed his love of Sentai by showing his old art of a Sentai as a child. Also, Red's VA voiced Gojo and voiced the Silver Go-Buster in Go Busters, along with voicing Ultraman X. So I did some digging around on Negi Haruba's Twitter, and I found what Crane was talking about. Haruba-san has been a major fan of Sentai since he was a kid, and even into adulthood, as he showcased a purse, according to Google Translate, looks more like a regular bag to me, of the red and green Sentai. Not sure what the series they're from or the age of Haruba, but I'd guess this is from the 90s at most, which makes this super freaking old and pretty cool. Also, didn't know that Red Keeper's VA also voiced Silver Go Buster in Go Busters and Ultraman X. I knew he was talented and prolific, but I didn't expect him to be that prolific. Still, pretty cool. Once again, sorry if I mispronounce your name, Daniel Larissa. He says, it seems interesting to me in the aspect of invasion because I get a feeling that the Dragon Rangers are in fact the bosses. Maybe they defeated the actual Dragon Rangers and took their identity because of greed, essentially taking over the world for themselves alone. Not sure because we haven't seen the Rangers' abilities, especially since Dusters can change their appearance and we don't know how much more powerful the Duster bosses are. Could answer the question of divine artifacts, and they only showed up a year after the invasion. Not sure if I'm cooking, but imagine that twist. And he leaves a timestamp to a segment of my video. I assume it's something embarrassing knowing me. But Daniel Larissa here is truly cooking. Gotta give credit to this theory, as it would be really cool if this were the case. The idea that the Ranger is the former boss of the Invaders is such a good idea. It would explain so much, and also would make sense too. Because as the bosses, not only do you get to control the Invaders, but you get to control humanity as well. It's so genius and absolutely something Haruba could pull off knowing his talent. I mean, he already pushed the boundaries of what a harem rom-com could do. Why can't he strike twice and do it again with Ranger Reject? It's feasible and a very good theory from Daniel Larissa. Tangerine, which is my favorite character in Demon Slayer, says, I normally don't notice cinematography in anime, but this episode went heavy on interesting and dynamic shots. Yeah, once again, I think Ranger Reject's production is on another level, and sadly, it just may not get the recognition it deserves, much like Quintessential Quintuplets for how good, different, and unique it is. Share this show and manga with your friends, guys. Support Ranger Reject, or some of my videos too. I would like that as well, but that's optional. Once again, hope I don't mispronounce your name, Tyrick Green. He says, I think Yumiko has some revenge, hate-filled grudge against the Rangers in her past, that they did something that pushed beyond the edge, being sadistic enough to hate them and the facade they put up the public. She is similar to Butcher from The Boys, who hates Homelander and the heroes. Let me tell you, this is an amazing observation, because I came to that same conclusion last episode, but I forgot to mention it. Yumiko Suzukiri is not letting on to anything and is planning something absolute. And to be fair, I don't think for a second that Yumiko is like Makima, that is some evil and manipulative lady out for selfish desires, using up anyone she can to achieve them. But I do think Yumiko is absorbed into her own goals, and I wonder if that self-absorption will necessitate her to call upon help eventually. After all, there is only so far you can go as a person alone. At some point, you need help, and while I believe Yumiko can get quite far with her being a very smart gal, already being an R&D, I do think there will be a point when the levee breaks and Yumiko may have to call upon some help from maybe Sakurama or, hell, D, if he's still kicking around in the future. And if that's the case, we finally will be able to know what the reward for D will be. Also, since they mentioned The Boys, I cannot wait for the next season of Boys and Gen V. Also, rest in peace to Chance Perdoma. He was great in that series, and he died too young. But that is it for the comments. Check the description for a multitude of ways to support the channel too. Thank you all so much for your continued support. See ya in the next video, where I react to All Might versus All for One for the first time on Monday. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.